So, as discussed in the last class, we'll be continuing the same parameters which we need to discuss. Here, the second design element which we need to consider is number of blades, and how to determine this number of blades is what is our topic right now. Now, in order to tap the maximum amount of energy from the wind, sorry, from the wind, the blades of the wind turbine are to be selected in such a way that they always face undisturbed wind. Here, what is meant by undisturbed wind means when there is a wind. Okay, let us say there is a wind. Now, in this wind, if we just give some disturbance, not only because of the natural disturbances, I'm saying about like if you have a let us say, okay, I'll give you an example. So if you have something like this and you're just moving this around like this, okay, now we have a blade which is moving around like this. Because of this movement, here whatever the speed of the wind is there natural speed of the wind is there, that is being disturbed, right? So in order for the blades to be having the maximum to tap the maximum amount of power, whatever the wind the blade is going to experience should be undisturbed. That is the main concern. Okay, so how to ensure this, how to make sure that whenever the blade crosses the wind, that wind is undisturbed, that is what we have to ensure. Okay, so to ensure this, we need to make sure that the undisturbed wind of one blade should not affect the second blade. Okay, and also they have to maintain an optimum speed such that the power generation should not be hampered. So we need to make sure that one blade's disturbed wind should not affect the second blade, as well as we should also ensure that this whatever this speed is there in which these blades are being rotated, that should that should have an optimal speed such that the generation should not be hampered. Okay, we can ensure that the one blade's disturbed wind cannot affect the second wind, but it may be such a slow mechanism that this blade and the second blade will not have any undisturbed wind. The second blade will not have any undisturbed wind, but it might be very slow. The rotation might be very slow. So we should make sure that that rotation which is happening should not hamper the electrical generation at the same time. Okay. So first thing we should maintain is there should be undisturbed wind for each blade. Fresh wind should be there for each blade. Along with that, we need to ensure that that speed at which these blades are rotated are having some optimal speed such that the power generation is not getting hampered. Okay, so and because of all these things and all the parameters which we have seen earlier, the number of blades is dependent on the tip speed ratio. How the we know this term, right? Tip speed ratio. Based upon this term, the number of blades is also depending on that. Okay. Now, in order to understand how much time or how much speed the blades should be moving and all those things, here we are taking an example and we are trying to understand. Here he is saying let TA be the time taken by one blade to move into the position occupied by the previous blade. So, in a TA is the time taken by one blade to move into the position of the previous blade. Okay. Now, for an end-bladed rotor, the rotating for an end-bladed rotor rotating at an angular velocity of omega, what is the time taken means omega for the angular the angular velocity, right? It takes omega sorry it makes omega degrees in 1 second. That is the angular velocity, right? So ta is equals to 2 pi is the total angle divided by angular velocity omega. So we'll get the time taken for the one blade to move. Next, let tb be the time taken by the disturbed wind caused by the blade to move away, and normal wind is to be re-established. That means the disturbance, whatever the disturbance is created by one blade, that should be taken out and a new air, that means undisturbed air should be present in that place. What is the time taken for this process to happen means TB. He is taking TB as the time taken. Now what does this process depend on means it depends upon the wind speed V as well as the length of the strongly perturbated wind. That means strongly disturbed wind. That means you need to understand what is the length of the wind that is being disturbed and the speed of the wind. Disturbed wind length as well as the speed of the wind. Now, this length stretching both upwards and downwards depends on the size and shape of the blades. So, this disturbance which is the disturbance which is occurring can be in both directions, right? It can be in upward direction as well as downward direction, and also it depends upon the size and shape of the blades. Size of the blade, because if it is a larger blade we'll have larger area of disturbed wind, as well as the shape of the blade also is important, because if you have an aerofoil structure then the disturbance will be a little less. If you have some other structure like flat structures, then there might be a larger disturbance area. So now he's calculating the time taken, that is TB is equals to D by V, where D is the length and V is the wind speed. Okay. For the maximum power extraction, TA and TB should be approximately equal, right? The time taken by the blade to move its to the position of the previous blade, that should be equal to the clearing of the disturbed wind. Those two should be equal, right? So we are just equating those two and we are getting something like this. The 2 pi by omega, it should be approximately equal to D by V. Now, on which parameters does this total choice of number of blades depends means? It depends upon the D is nothing but the disturbed wind length, and this is calculated empirically. Okay. Larger number of blades have large number of blades means high solidity, which means high torque and low speed. This is for water pumping and other mechanical works. All this water pumping and other mechanical works will be using large number of blades and with high solidity. This is what we have seen. Alright. Similarly, for electrical power generation, what is our requirement means? There should be small number of blades with low solidity, low torque and high speed, with high tip speed ratio and empirical measurement of D. All these things are the parameters which help us to get the electrical power generation. And generally 2 or 3 blades is the optimal number of blades for electrical power generation. For the water pumping and other mechanical works, you can have larger number of blades. It doesn't matter. But for our electrical power generation, the what is the optimal number of blades means 2 blades or 3 blades is the optimal number of blades. Optimal number of blades. Now, 3 blade and 2 blade designs are both popular. So we can use either a 3 blade design or a 2 blade design depending upon our requirement. Okay. So they both are popular. Now, what are the advantages and disadvantages of these 2 blades and 3 blade systems? We'll see. Now, for the 2 blade systems, the weight is less because we'll be having one lesser wing, right? The wing will be lesser than the 3 blade system. One wing will be lesser, and it is easy to erect, and it is quite easy to erect because of the weight of the total system will be a little lesser than the 3 blade system, so it is easy to erect. Now, while coming to the 3 blade system, it has 33% more weight and cost than the 2 blade system, because one wing is being added extra. But the power coefficient increases by only 5 to 10%. Only 5 to 10% is the increase in the power coefficient for the weight and cost of 33% more. That's quite not, the equation is not quite economical, right? But when we look at different other parameters like smooth power output, balanced gyroscopic force, less blade fatigue, less chance of failure, these are the parameters which are ensuring that the 3 blade system is much more economical than the 2 blade system. Why we are going for all these things means the power will be smoother than the two blade system. The output power will be smoother than the two blade system, as well as balanced gyroscopic force. The forces which are acting on the blades will be balanced, rather balanced than the two blade system. And because of this, the blade whichever is have the stresses or the forces the blade is experiencing will be less. Because of this, the amount of wear and tear on the blade will be less. And because of all these things, the chances of failure of the blade in three blade system will be less. Now, by judging all these parameters, we go for a three blade system rather than a two blade system. Now, next. Next is choice of blade profile and material. So, as we have already seen when we studied the structure of aerofoil and all the Eiffel polars and everything, we know that there are different types of aerofoil shapes, right? So, these aerofoil shapes, how they are and why do we go for certain aerofoil shapes is what we are going to see here. Now, for the low TSR, that is low tip speed ratio, that like water pumping windmills and all those things. For this, the blade will be a flat metallic plate. The blade will be a flat metallic plate. And sometimes this flat metallic plate is circularly curved. Is circularly curved like something like this. Okay, just a curve will be there in the blade. Because of this curvature, the aerofoil like characteristics are formed. But here what happens is we are not changing the shape of the blade. We are just taking a metallic sheet and then just curving it. Is my voice not audible? Is my voice not audible? Can anyone else just message me?
Ma'am, it's audible, but it is breaking, ma'am.
Okay, it's breaking. You're saying it's breaking.
Yes, ma'am.
Is it even now it is breaking, or previously it was breaking? No.
Mm, now is also same, it's breaking, ma'am.
Okay, some of your friends is saying that it is perfectly audible. Um, okay, what we'll do is, as usual, we'll just continue with the class, and I'm recording the class as well. So I'll just put the recording into your Google Classroom or something like that. Okay. If it
Okay,
is
ma'am.
getting I mean, if it is breaking and everything, I'll just upload this video into your Google Classroom or something. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. Chalo. Let's continue the class.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, chalo. Now, these blades which are there, those are just being curved just a little, not much. And these blades, because of this curving of the blades, these are having some aerofoil-like characteristics. But because this total blade is having uniform thickness and all those things, these have a low rigidity. That means they are not as rigid as you want it to be. So because of this low rigidity, what we are doing is we are collecting all these blades through a metallic ring. This we have seen in case of uh, this one. If I if you people remember, we have seen in the type of wind turbines in the starting itself, we have seen that there is a ring around the. Okay, I'll just try and find out that and will show you the. Yeah, here we have seen that these are connected with a metallic ring. Why we are connecting with this metallic ring means, because in order to ensure that those do not break. Okay, in order to ensure that they do not break. Okay, chalo. Okay, now here what happens is these should be run at higher speeds in order to make this economical. Okay, so if they are running at lower speeds, then the cost of production is not justified. Whatever the production cost is there, that is not being justified. Okay, now this is for low speed wind turbines and all those things. Now, while coming to the high speed turbines, the aerofoil blade profile is a must. That means whatever the shape of the blade, if you cut the cross section of the blade, that cross section should contain an aerofoil structure. It is a must for a high speed wind turbine. Okay, now we know that there are different aerofoil shapes, right? These different aerofoil shapes have been studied and gone through different experiments. They have conducted different experiments in order to understand how these work and everything. This all is done by National Advisory Committee of Aeronautics, that is NACA. If you remember in the problem when they gave us some data, he has given NACA some number, right? NACA and some number. That was the code given for us to understand what aerofoil structure has been implemented, right? NACA is nothing but National Advisory Committee of Aeronautics. This is from USA and this is Göttingen University from Germany. Those two committees and those two universities or those two what do you say bodies have taken up these aerofoil shapes and conducted different experiments on these aerofoil shapes. Why did they do all these things? Means they have done it to understand the construction of aeroplane wings and propellers. They have done whatever the research that has been done is because of in order to understand what is the optimal design for the aeroplane and all those things. Okay, and whatever these parameters are there, these they have published them on based upon different numbers, like we have seen 23018 or 23016, something like that, right? NACA 23018 and 23012 or something, which we have seen in the previous cases. Based upon those numbers and based upon those models, you will get the data sheets. You will get the data sheets which will provide you with different types of what do you say CD, SCL and all those things. Okay, power coefficients and all those things. So and via and these whatever the aerofoil shapes they have seen for aeroplane wings and propellers, these have high Reynolds number. What is a Reynolds number, which we need to see? Okay, the Reynolds number of any fluid flow is given by Re is equals to WBP by V dash, where BP is the width of the profile in meters, width of the area in meters, and W is the flow velocity and V dash is the viscosity. Okay, if the flow velocity is much higher than the viscosity, we get high Reynolds number, the condition prevailing in an aeroplane propeller. On the other hand, if the if the flow around the blade is slower, the viscosity term becomes significant and we get a low Reynolds number. Viscosity is nothing but simply okay, I can say it is like density. Okay, we can say it's not exactly density, but it is like density, the number of molecules present in a smaller area. Okay, if you take a unit area, you can say how many number of elements or molecules are present in that area. Based upon that, this term viscosity is being defined. We have already studied about viscosity in chemistry or something, I don't remember where we have studied, but uh, that based upon that viscosity, this Reynolds number is being given. If you have higher what do you say, the speed of the wind is higher around the blade, then there will be the result will be having a higher Reynolds number. If the speed of the wind is slower or lesser, then you will have less Reynolds number. That is the basic thing you people need to understand. Now, these whatever they have done, aeronautics, NACA and Göttingen University, whatever they have done, that is for higher Reynolds number elements. That means the Reynolds number around the aeroplane wings and propellers will be much higher. Okay, so why are we saying that this is higher, and why are we so stuck upon this Reynolds number? Means this Reynolds number, if it is high, the aerofoil will experience some properties. Okay, it will exhibit some properties. If it is low, then it will exhibit some other properties. You cannot expect the aerofoil to have same properties at high Reynolds number and low Reynolds number. Okay, the properties of the aerofoil will change according to the Reynolds number also. So these whatever the data they have given is for high Reynolds number. But when we come to our particular case, that is for the wind turbine, this Reynolds number of the flow around the wind blade is much lesser than the flow around the aeroplane wings. Whatever the Reynolds number we are getting around the wind turbine blade is much lesser than what it is being there on around the aeroplane wings. So whatever the data these people have given about the aerofoil structures cannot be used in case of our what do you say, wind turbine design. So because of this difference of the Reynolds number and everything, they have again taken up this low Reynolds number, and they have again published some of the series, special series of aerofoil structures. These structures or these series have been published by Wortmann from the University of Stuttgart in Germany and by Applied Aerodynamics Group at University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign. So these Wortmann from the University of Stuttgart and sorry, Stuttgart and Applied Aerodynamics Group. These people, what they have done is they have tailored the aerofoils such that they are applicable for our low Reynolds numbers. Okay, for the low Reynolds numbers, they have given us a different series. Okay, which are applicable for low Reynolds number, which we can use for our wind turbines. Now, what is the material used for this wind turbine generation? Sorry, wind turbine blades means high speed wind turbine blades are made of high density wood or fiberglass and epoxy composites. So these are the materials, that means density, high density wood or fiberglass and epoxy components, the composites. These are the materials used for the blades. Now, what are the, so whatever we take, whatever the precautions we take, whatever the understanding we make it, there will be mechanical stresses that are being produced in the blades while rotating, right? While the operation is being done, while the electricity is being produced, the blades are the elements which have the maximum mechanical stress, which experience the maximum mechanical stress apart from all the other elements in the turbine, sorry, in the total structure. So these can be easily broken when compared to different types of sorry, different parts of the wind turbine. So we need to make sure that these stresses, which are mechanical stresses which are being produced in the blades, are between or within the limits. We have to have them within the limits. To make these stresses within the limits, we have to define a predefined speed limit, and this predefined speed limit should be always maintained. And also, when there is high wind speeds, we cannot do anything, right? Because high wind speed, the turbine experiences with high what do you say, speeds and everything. Then what we are doing to maintain our blades, to protect our blades, means we are stalling the wind turbines. That is, stalling means stopping them. We are stopping the wind turbines, we are cutting it off, and making sure that our blades do not experience all these mechanical stresses. Okay, and the second thing which we are doing, and the third thing which we are doing is restricting the acceleration and deceleration rates. We cannot, will not allow the, what do you say, speed to accelerate fastly as well as decelerate fastly. We cannot allow that. Okay, that is what we are doing. So three things we are doing to avoid the mechanical stresses in the blade. What are those means? First is we are defining a speed limit. The second one is stalling the wind turbines at high speeds. Stalling it, that means stopping it. Next, the third one is restricting the acceleration and deceleration rates. We are just restricting those rates such that we may what do you say, protect our blades. Okay, next one is determination of the blade chord. So here we need to understand blade chord is nothing but the length of the wing, right? How much length of the wing should be there throughout the wing, that throughout the total blade. That is what we are going to see. Now, to understand what is what is the blade chord, how much amount of blade chord, sorry, what's the length of the blade cord that is optimal for the production of electricity, all those things we need to understand all these different parameters. Here while we were discussing the blade element theory, there we have taken a small element of the blade, right, small part of the blade, and we have understood what are the stresses in that blade element, right. Here, our assumption in that case was whatever the stress that is being produced in that blade element, whatever the forces that are being produced in the blade element between that small dr radius or dr element is what do you say, is saved throughout that blade, is saved throughout that blade, whatever that small blade element is there in that blade element, throughout that blade element we are assuming that same amount of stress and same amount of forces are being acted upon. Okay, that was our assumption. The same assumption here also we are going to take for the blade element between the radius r and r plus dr, that means small blade element dr. We know that we can get these relations. These relations are not new ones, ma. These relations are taken from that what do you say, vector diagram which we had earlier. It's not something new. You people have already seen this vector diagram. I'll just show you again. Where is this blade element theory? Yeah. Yeah, here. From this diagram itself, he is taking all those parameters. From this diagram itself, we are having these parameters. Okay, let's do one thing. I'll just try to copy this one so that, okay, here it is. This one we'll copy. Control C. Okay, this is the what do you say, vector diagram. From this vector diagram we are seeing these values. Df is equals to dfl by cos eta and all those things. Df, where is df? Yeah, df is equals to dfl by cos eta. That is what he's saying. From this vector diagram only he is drawing all these things. And w is equals to v by sin I. W is equals to v by sin I. W is equals to V by sin A. All these things we have already seen. So from that diagram we have just taken these relations, and this from these relations we can obtain the thrust force on the blade element, as we are obtaining the thrust force on the blade element. This is all. This one also we have seen already. Next, if the blade cord length is C, the elemental blade area is given by dVAB is equals to C into dr, then the thrust force can be written as, he is taking the same equation and just modifying. Here we have dAB, right? He's just substituting C into dr in place of dAB. We are just getting the thrust force equation, something like that. Similarly, the moment produced by the force becomes, here we know that moment is nothing but the thrust force into radius, right? Thrust force into radius. Moment is nothing but the perpendicular force, perpendicular distance into radius, into force, right? That same thing he is writing here. Okay, same thing, just d in r into dfm. That's all. Okay. Now, so what are the basic things which we need to keep in mind in order to determine the chord length means? These are the basic things. The first thing is the total torque developed by the blade at the rated wind speed should be equal to the desired value. So the total torque should not exceed the desired value. That is the first thing. The total torque should be having should the total torque produced should be equal to the desired value. The second thing is moment and thrust developed in the blades of the equal length along the blade should be almost equal. So if you are taking two blades of same equal length and we are calculating the moment and thrust developed in those blades, those should be equal. Those should be almost equal. Maybe a little difference is allowed, but almost equal. They should be almost equal. Those are the 2 points which we need to keep in mind for developing the chord length, for understanding the chord length. Now, Here I is given by the magnitudes of u and v. Okay, these things which we know, these are the things we know, right? Blade element theory, the values of the parameters are considered to be constant throughout the element that we have discussed. And again, I is given by the I is nothing but the incidence angle is given by the magnitudes of u and v. U means again undisturbed. Sorry, blade speed, and v is nothing but the undisturbed wind speed. And that blade element, okay, and that blade element I is given. The values of all parameters should be designed such that when the sum is taken for all the blade elements, it should not exceed the desired values. Here whatever we are considering, that we this incidence angle which we are considering is for a small blade element, and we know that, and we need to make sure that when we add all these blade elements, that means throughout the blade, when we add all these blade elements and the incidence angles of this all blade elements, those should not exceed our desired values. That means we need to make sure that whatever the values we are getting at the end, that should not exceed the total desired values. That is what is our main concern here. Now, because of this blade element theory, we will get I values, incidence angles values different at different blade elements, right? Each blade element will be experiencing different I values, but because of this I values, again the chord length will be different for each of these blade elements, but this complex variation of the chord length might not be economical. That means we cannot, sometimes we cannot even what do you say, design in such a way that the chord lengths are varying throughout the blade, and sometimes it is not economical to have such different chord lengths. Now, what are we going to do when we do not have this what is economical? When we have this economical constraint, what are we going to do? Is we are going to just have a trapezoidal tapering. Trapezoidal means you know the shape of a trapezoid, right? The one of the length will one of the side will be larger than the other side, and those two are connected. So you will have something like which has a broader side on one side, and that will be shaped as into a tip on the other side, as I've said in the last class, like a kulfi. Like if you just look at the kulfi, the shape of the kulfi will be, you will have a broader end towards your stick, and again it will be lesser when you go through the blade. That is what is economical for our chord length variation. Next is choice of pitch angle. Now, the next element which we need to take is pitch angle. We know that the pitch angle is given by I minus capital I minus small I, right? Capital I varies throughout the blade, so alpha also varies throughout the blade. That means we have to, there will be a twist. There will be a twist like this, something like this, twist along the blade that need to be calculated. There will be a twist along the blade that need to be calculated. So we know that to understand these values and all those things, to understand I value and all those things, we have seen that there are polars called as I field polars, which give us the CD versus TANI, right? CD versus TANI and CL versus TANI. So in order to get the optimal incidence angle, what we have done, we have just drawn a tangent to the TANI, and then tangent to the plot, and then that tangent gives us the minimum incidence value, incidence angle. So the same thing can be done here also, but what happens here is, here we need to have we are going to calculate this pitch angle, right? This pitch angle, again here both CD and CL should be drawn at same scale. Here we need to have both CD and CL plots in one plot itself. We cannot have two plots, for one for CD and one for CL. We need to have a plot which contains both of them, but these cannot be drawn in the same scale because CD is much greater than CL. Okay, CD has a much greater scale than CL, because of which we cannot draw it to the same scale. So what we are going to do is, instead of having this I field polar, we are going to plot CD by CL versus I. We are going to plot a graph CD by CL versus I. And this lower, and in this graph, the lowest point which we get in this graph will give us the optimal value of the incidence angle. Will give us the optimal value of the incidence angle. Okay. Now, this twisted blade will have different pitch angles at different lengths, right? So we'll have, in order to create this twisted blade, twisted blade will have different pitch angles at different lengths. This might not be economical in some cases. So what we are going to do is, we are going to take an optimal pitch angle. Where do we take this optimal pitch angle? Means we are going to take this optimal pitch angle at r is equals to 0.8 r. That means 80% of your radius. At the 80% of your radius, you're going to take whatever the pitch angle is present at that 80% of your radius, and that pitch angle is implemented throughout the blade. Okay. If it is not economical, that means the twisted blade, if it is not economical for us to produce, then we are going for the second variation, second alternate, where we are taking the pitch angle at 80% of the blade length, and then just taking that and just implementing that throughout the blade. This is the choice of pitch angle. Next is the tower. So the tower supports the whole machinery in case of a horizontal axis wind turbine, right? For a vertical axis wind turbine, the tower, the whatever the equipment we have, that can be put in the ground itself, on the ground level itself, right? But for a horizontal axis wind turbine, the tower should have the strength to support the whole machinery, whatever the machinery we are having, that is like generators, turbines, gearbox, whatever. We'll see what are the different parts. All those parts should be bared, that weight of all those parts should be bared by the tower itself. And this should because in order to do that, it should have high strength. And because of this high strength requirement, what is the type of material used for the tower? Means we are using either steel towers or concrete towers. We are using either steel towers or concrete towers. And the construction of this tower, the construction of the shape of the tower is tubular is nothing but like a tube structure or a lattice construction. Lattice also, it's like lattice, we know, right? It will be like this. In that construction we'll be having. Okay. Now here we need to make sure that this tower should not amplify the vibrations. That means because of the wind energy, sorry, because of the wind that is being sorry, incidence on the blades, this whole structure vibrates. Those vibrations should not be amplified. Those vibrations should not be amplified because of the tower. That means whatever the resonant frequencies are there, those resonant, based upon those resonant frequencies, we need to carefully design the tower. Based upon those resonant frequencies. Okay. Now, what is the height of this tower and how to determine the height of the tower? Means for medium and large turbines, the tower is slightly greater than the rotor diameter. Whatever the rotor diameter we have, the tower is just a little more greater than the rotor diameter, in order to protect these blades, in order to make sure that the blades are not touching the ground and everything. Okay. It will be just a little more greater than the rotor diameter in case of medium and large turbines. When we come to the smaller turbines, here the tower is much greater than the rotor diameter. Here why are we going for higher towers in case of small turbines? Means here, if we take same condition as the medium and large turbine, if you just maintain a little more than the rotor diameter, what happens is the turbine height, the tower height will be only small. And because of this, what do you say, smaller height of the total structure, tower structure, you cannot tap the wind speeds at higher levels, right? You cannot tap the wind speeds at higher levels. When we go on increasing the height of the, what do you say, when we go on going higher, then you will experience higher wind speeds. If you the small turbines are having only smaller heights, that means you cannot tap high wind speeds. Because of which we are going to make the tower greater than the rotor diameter. like height of the tower is much more greater than the rotor diameter. Now, what is the height, optimal heights, and what are the natural heights or for this means for 10 kilowatts to 100 kilowatts of power production, 10 kilowatts to 100 kilowatts of power production, the height of the tower will be from 20 meters to 30 meters, from 20 meters to 30 meters. In case of 300 kilowatts to 500 kilowatts of power production, we'll have the height of the tower as 35 meters to 40 meters, 35 meters to 40 meters. So this is the height of the tower and all those things. Now the last point which we need to discuss is transmission system and gearbox. Now, if you just look at this diagram, you can see what are the different parts present in the total arrangement. Here you can see there will be a shaft. Okay, there are the blades. We have a hub and housing. Housing means just where all these materials are being put together. Now we have a shaft, we have a gearbox, we have a brake system, we have a generator, and the total arrangement is put on a tower. This we are seeing. Now what happens here is whatever the wind speeds which you are getting will be very much slow, like like maximum whatever the maximum wind speed is there, that maximum wind speed or the optimal wind speed will be much lesser than the speed of electrical generator. So so what happens is this lesser amount of speed, lesser amount of turbine speed will not produce electricity, will not produce electricity. So in order to produce the electricity even at this lower speeds, what we are going to do is we are going to arrange a gearbox. We are going to arrange a gearbox. You know what is a gearbox, right? If you just look at your watch or something, if so many of us might have seen watch, right? In that watch you will have a gear for seconds, minutes as well as hours. You can see that after 60 rotations of the seconds gear, only then you will see a change in the minutes gear. Similarly 60 minutes hours gear will be changed, like that, right? In the same manner here what we are going to do is the low wind speeds which are present, which are happening, that means the lower speed of the turbine is changed into higher speed of the generator by this gearbox. These gearboxes these gearboxes are of different types and different mechanisms according to our requirement. Generally if you have no budget, that means whatever the budget we have is very less, then what we'll do is we'll put only one gearbox in which there will be only one gear speed. That means only the gearbox will have one gear which will be converting the wind speed into the generator speed, and only one will be present, that's all. What will be the ratio means 20 or 30. 20 or 30 will be the gear ratio, that's all. You will have only one speed. That means whether the turbine is rotating at a higher speed or at a lower speed, it doesn't matter. Only the conversion rate is just one speed, that's all. 20 or 30 times the original wind speed, that's all. That is only there in for one when we don't have any economical this one freedom. So when we have an economical freedom, when we can afford a higher or a greater amount of when we can spend a greater amount, what we are going to do is we are going for the double shift double speed gearbox. What does this double speed gearbox does is when the wind speed is very low, let us say the wind speed is very low, in that case the gear will shift, the gear will shift the gear will shift and the multiplication factor will also be shifted. The multiplication factor will also be shifted, and the speed will be multiplied much more and given to the generator. When the wind speeds are very high, let us say we are experiencing higher wind speeds, in that case this gearbox will come to the second gear. In the second gear the multiplication factor will be less than the first gear. The multiplication factor will be less than the first gear, and then what happens is it is tapping the higher wind speed and converting it into the generator speed. Same thing will be happening here also. But what happens is, because of this two speed shift gearbox, what happens is we'll be having an economical output. The smoother output will be present. Okay, the smoother output will be present from the generator. But if you have only one of the speeds, let us say if you have only one speed gearbox, then what happens is whatever the wind speed is there, the generator output will be affected. There will not be any smoother generator output when there is only a single shift gearbox. But if you have a dual shift gearbox or two speed gearbox, what happens is you can control the smoother power coming out of the generator. You can control the smoother power coming out of the generator. So these are the different parts which we need to understand in this turbines, or wind speed turbines, designing of this wind speed turbines. Okay, so this is the last topic which we need to discuss for this unit. So this is for that's it for today's class. Let's stop here.